Good morning. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. So
It's
here we are
Tuesday.
again. I feel like this is my job now.
Right?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
but it's fun.
It
So
is.
it's okay.
It is.
I would never have dreamed I would say that,
No.
but there we are.
I know, right? A year ago,
Right.
we were like, what are we going to do?
And look at how far we've come.
We
totally,
have. Yeah, early mornings and later afternoons.
It seems to work though.
Yes, it does.
So yeah.
Yeah. So if you're joining us this morning, we're going to be discussing all things KimberBell, red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue.
It's such a cute name.
Oh, it's morning.
Yes.
And the yawns begin.
I can't share my coffee with you. You don't like it.
No, and I left my water way over there, but that's okay. There's Mountain Dew in the fridge.
Yeah. I didn't grab a pattern either, did you? Do you have one in your box?
Like me in the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I have one.
Cool. So we are breaking this up for the next month. Tuesday mornings at 9.
Today and the next 3
3
Tuesdays at 9 a.m. we will talk all things red, white, and bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I sent out an email late yesterday. It took all day to make that email. It was a crazy Monday in here. But in the back of the book is where it starts showing you how to put the things together. Those are the sections that we're talking about. So that starts on page 32. And it will talk section 1, section 2, so on and so forth. So those are the sections that we're referring to when we say section 1.
Yes. So let's start at the very beginning, getting yourself a little bit organized. There's a lot of information in this book at the beginning, and it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're A, new to KimberBell, B, new to maybe cutting out a quilt, or C, just find this to be a complicated.
This is the overwhelming process.
Right.
Once you get this part done, it's piece of cake, right? But
Exactly.
This is like I can't screw this up.
Right. And today is like the day to talk about organization, so we're going to be talking about organizing this afternoon, too.
We are. At the beginning, there is, of course, the CD, which you will need.
Yes.
And then she goes on to talk about how to, it's this page over here. Sorry.
I know. The reverse thing is really hard.
In the morning of deli is beyond me today. I apologize. So those bags is what she's recommending that you're sectioning those pieces off with. Mm-hmm. I don't do that. It doesn't work for me. That's more work than I want it to be, but it does work.
It does.
If that's how your brain works.
Well, and I think it matters like how quickly you think you're going to get to it.
Right.
And where you're going to be. So you knew you were going to cut it.
I was going to cut it and then start sewing immediately and hopefully have it done
absolutely
quickly. So
if you are going to cut and then it's going to be a little while,
the bags are phenomenal because that keeps,
probably make sure that you don't lose any little bits,
because little bits are a thing.
Yeah, there's lots of little
pieces.
So
and a lot of those little ones are the embellishments, which
yes.
cost a lot to replace when you can't find
yes,
a 2x2 square and you have to buy a whole package because you can't find a 2x2 square of something. So
absolutely,
we don't want to lose those.
No.
The next portion of the pattern goes by each individual type of fabric, mm-hmm. and then it shows the size and where it's used in the quilt. So if later on when you're looking at the pattern and you say, okay, it's some sort of blue, but I can't tell which pattern blue it is, you could come in here and it would say the name of the project and what size that is. So you can match that up and make sure that you're putting the right pieces in the right place.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out, I highly, highly recommend that you go to the very bottom of the second page and pull out your inner border, your outer border, if you have a back in your binding, if you put it all together.
Those
separate.
Don't cut those.
Because it's happened on every quilt we've done so far.
Somebody
has cut into their border because it's not a huge piece.
The
inner borders are like a 1/4 yard and the outer borders are like 5/8 of a yard. So it's tiny. It could easily be misconstrued
to go somewhere else.
That's right. So pull those pieces out. And the
binding on this one in particular is
it's
also in the quilt. So it's not a very big piece. You only get a fat 1/8, but the binding piece isn't that big. It's only 1/3 of a yard. Right. So it'd be easy to go, and cut your chunk out of that larger piece if you weren't paying enough attention. So great tip
Yes.
of setting those aside so that
Yep.
that is not there.
Yeah, so I have already had 2 people tell me they cut into their border piece on this one already.
Oh no.
So yes, make sure you set those aside because, like we said, it'll happen. They are not going to be the only 2 people. It happened on Love Notes back there, so it'll definitely happen.
That's really weird. Nobody told me that.
Set that aside.
Must have been on days I wasn't here.
Maybe they thought it would be more sympathetic. Just kidding.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm a pretty hard-nosed person, so I can totally see where that would be the thing. Yeah. So this page here, this is the skinny. This is the good stuff.
Yes.
Use this.
Use that for your cutting diagram.
This literally shows you what direction, if it's directional,
Mhm.
and all of those things so that you make sure that you're getting the size pieces out that you need.
Yeah.
If you just start hacking, you may not end up with enough fabric to cut a large size that you might need.
Mhm.
So following that pattern of where to start cutting, you know, bottom left-hand corner, this is my big piece, cut the big piece first,
Yes.
which makes sense, but sometimes we don't think,
No.
especially at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, or maybe it's midnight or whatever
Right.
it happens to be. But odd hours of the day, our brain doesn't always function as well.
True.
Until I suppose after you have your coffee or Mountain Dew.
Yes. I wasn't calling you out, Holly.
No,
Just
not
FYI.
even a little bit. We weren't going to name names. You just called yourself out. Good job.
So the other thing that I do before I cut my pieces is I starch them. Did you do start? Are you starching?
Yep.
Yep. So you definitely fabric shrinks. Even good quality fabric has some shrinkage to it. And big picture, if you use nobody wants to wash these little pieces.
No,
That
no.
would not be fun at all. But if you use some Best Press or Best Press 2, or if you're a starch person, if you use some starch, it's going to kind of pre-shrink your pieces. It's also going to stiffen them up so that it makes cutting them easier.
Yes.
And it also prevents a little bit of the little bit of shrinkage that happens later on if you hit this with a
if you
steam
hit
iron.
it with the iron later on, you're going to be, oh, crap,
Yeah.
that doesn't fit like I thought it was going to.
Yes. So take
Yep.
the time to do that. That is definitely a big help in making sure that everything is accurate.
And not only that, you know, but we've folded the fabrics to go into the pretty box and
Mhm.
whatnot. And even if you got your kit elsewhere and those were prepackaged, those fabrics have been folded. So they have folds and different things in them, which make cutting hard. So you're also getting out all of those. So you're starting with a nice, crisp,
I
flat
have a
piece.
giant smudge right across the front of my
I'm
glasses
so
here.
sorry. I probably
So,
do too, but I'm not currently
It's
using
like
mine.
I just keep thinking there's like something on the screen. It's not. It's my glasses.
I have something in my eye that it's that the left eye morning drip.
Yeah.
It just waters every day and it's not
No,
stopping yet.
no.
It hasn't stopped yet.
So let's.
Cutting,
Yes.
very, very important. Tucked in there, she has the embellishment cutting chart as well. It is very clear. There is no confusion. So
Mhm.
I have looked at that before and gone, I'm supposed to cut what, where? But this one was super clear. All of the embellishments were very obviously what it says
What they
that
were,
they are.
yeah.
So there weren't any really weird things this time around. So a stabilizer is what is covered next in the pattern.
Mhm.
So a light mesh cutaway stabilizer is what she's recommending to be put in there, and then a fusible backing, which is what we want on the background fabric. We are going to show we don't have any fused, so ignore that part.
Yes.
Sarah grabbed just some fabric so that
Yes.
we can show you how to put this a base block together and with the quilting patterns. If you are confused, we hopefully will alleviate that problem here in a few moments.
So fusible backing to all of the background pieces.
Yep.
And a lightweight, like
A lightweight,
poly
like a
mesh,
no
show
poly
mesh,
no show mesh, or any of those types of things.
Mhm. Anything
Um,
you put like a t-shirt, that type. It's
Mhm.
really lightweight. It's translucent. It
Right.
won't add a ton of bulk.
It's not going to add bulk, but it's going to add stability so that you don't get puckering around satin stitches, because you know
Mhm.
Kimber Likes satin stitches.
They do. So the
and
combination,
big ones
yeah,
too,
and
which they're so pretty, but they do tend to
absolutely
cause problems if you don't prepare for them properly.
So you've got
So-
a combination of the no-show mesh just in the hoop.
Yep.
You've got your fabric stiffened with some sort of starch. You've got your fusible woven on the back of it. This is like the recipe for success for
Yep.
KimberBell.
Absolutely.
If you are missing one of those things,
You will see it.
You're probably going to notice.
Probably going to know.
Yep, you'll notice that yours doesn't look like Lisa's because it's that recipe really does.
It really does
make a big difference. Absolutely.
You know, because there's generally, you know, we're talking about pieces yay big.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of stitches in that piece.
Yes.
And it's a loose piece. We're not hooping it. We're floating it.
Right.
So that just
Adds
opens to the door for possibilities. So we're going to try to negate that before we start.
Absolutely.
So very, very important. You're going to hoop a mesh,
Mm-hmm.
stabilizer only in the hoop, and then you're going to starch.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to fuse your fusible to the background. You don't need to do that for your applique pieces, but for the background pieces.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And tighten that hoop really well because
and make
it's
sure
just
nothing. Yes.
stabilizer.
Yep.
So wrench that down a lot because it's thin. Yes, it is very thin.
Don't wrench it so hard you break the hoop because we have seen people do that. That is a possibility. But
definitely tighten.
Definitely tighten your hoop and make sure. So good morning to those of you just joining us or just commenting in anyways. And I personally use Best Press. I don't have Best Press 2 at home. I buy it by the gallon of Best Press 1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I use. If I
use
need more, then
both Best Press and regular like starch in a can.
I don't have starch in a can.
And the reason that I use the two different ones is because I love Best Press and you can layer it in and it works really great. But sometimes I'm doing really larger pieces and the other stuff is, you know, it's just cheap. It's just cheap, but you have to be careful because it flakes. So you don't want to use it on like the regular starch is very flaky. So if you layer it on top of your background fabric and then you're ironing it, you're gonna get like some flakes on the bottom of your iron, and you're gonna get some flakes on your fabric. So you do have to be careful that you don't. It can basically burn. They can burn. So that doesn't happen with Best Press, or the Best Press 2, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It does not leave a layer of anything on it, but
Nope.
I do always Best Press from the back.
I generally do as well.
Yeah.
I don't know that I really pay attention to that, but now that you mention it, yeah, that's generally what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have no reason for it, I guess, because I never really paid attention, but that is what I've done.
Holly, the fusible stabilizer that we're talking about is the fusible woven that goes on the back. And so there we have a KimberBell brand, we have a t-shirt brand, we have an OESD brand, and we have a Heat and Bond brand. Out of all of those, the Heat and Bond brand is my favorite.
Okay.
It comes in the largest chunk, and it is pre-shrunk. The KimberBell one doesn't say that it is pre-shrunk or not pre-shrunk. I did notice just a little bit of
pulling.
Yes. So KimberBell would be my second favorite. And
Okay.
then everything else is basically the same underneath it.
And I know I've said this before, if I don't have that or I can't find it or I've run out, I've used usable no-show mesh on the back. It's a similar weight and it does work to use the same process. I think that is a better choice, but if that's what you have, that could be a substitute.
And if you're using a fusible no-show mesh as a substitute, the Floriani and the Baby Lock and the Laboo brand, they're all really good. They have no shrinkage.
They don't shrink.
But if you are a fan of OESD products and you have their poly mesh, it does shrink. So be careful because you could get a little bit of this
pulling in afterwards with that
if you accidentally get that wet. So just a FYI, all of the products are just a little
mine
different.
Is I bought the big roll of the Laboo when we had that, so that's what I have at home. So I feel like I can use that if I need to interchangeably, but she's not wrong on that either. Good morning, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
So
Lisa's mom.
But yes, the stabilizer again is super important. You know, if you are makeshifting out of random whatnots, make sure that you are getting something that's not going to shrink. Because that definitely will show later on. Oh my goodness, Northern California, what time is it there?
Right?
Oh, and I thought it was early here. Oh my goodness. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
We were talking about making sure that you have a good quality product.
I had a customer come in yesterday and mentioned that they didn't have the right size stabilizer for their hoop.
Mm-hmm.
And so they overlapped different pieces to make sure the entire hoop was full. I don't really recommend that. We had that conversation when she was in, and I'm certainly not calling anybody out, but stitching stabilizer together or just layering to make sure everything's covered isn't proper.
Yeah, it doesn't
Give you the same result. So when I say use what you have, I don't mean that. Please don't do that.
Yeah, I mean,
but Lisa said, she didn't.
Yeah. So if at all possible, definitely make sure that you're.
Yes.
We say this all the time, and we kind of just assume everybody remembers this, but the stabilizer needs to go through the entire hoop, regardless of whether or not you're stitching something this big in the center of the hoop. And the stabilizer goes through the entire hoop.
Everywhere.
Yes.
And if you've ever tried it, otherwise you'll understand why that makes a difference. So we see it all the time. People come in, my machine's not working right. Things aren't coming out. And we flip their hoop over and we go, well, let's have a little conversation
about stabilizer.
How this is supposed to be done.
Sharon says it's 6:15 where she is.
Yeah, I thought it was that.
Ooh. I'm an early girl. Sharon's.
No. I'm more apt to go to bed at 6:15 than to get up at 6:15.
All right.
Pulling teeth to be ready at 9.
I know, right? I know.
All right. So,
Louisa, this is funny. We just have to say this. Okay, Louisa, we're going to put you on the spot here. Good morning, gals. My big challenge is to open the box. Yes. Step 1 would be open the box.
But that lid can seem very heavy.
It can.
Yeah. It's just like, wow, this is a big undertaking. We're just going to leave it there for another day.
Yeah.
And we'll look at it tomorrow. Cute. It's so pretty in the box. Let's just leave it all pretty in there.
Yes.
And Hayden did such a nice job. You can see all the fabrics in it. So I totally don't blame you. I get that.
Yeah. So a quick recap. We are at organizing, cutting.
Yep.
Starching, stabilizer in our hoop. And that's where we're at. So
we're almost ready to stitch.
We are.
Yeah. So loading the design. We have shown this before. And I am using all of the quilting patterns. So I am pre-quilting in the hoop. You don't have to do that. It will help stabilize that fabric and keep things in position because you're going to have batting back there, which is just one more piece of support for all of those stitches. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to do that. We're going to talk about them with that way. If you were one of those lucky people that pre-ordered and got those for free, you've got lots and lots of options. So we're going to talk about how to pick the right file and then how to get going.
Yes. So we're going to demonstrate pre-quilting. If you are not doing the pre-quilting part, then this part is not for you. And just to clarify, we still have to do some quilting to the quilt when we're finished to pre-quilt because we are basically attaching the batting and the top fabric, but not the backing.
So you still need to, correct. So you still need to have a sandwich when you're done. Mm-hmm. And with it pre-quilted, it's kind of like, okay, now what do I do? So we'll talk about that in 3 weeks.
Yes.
But we will cover it. So,
but I did want to mention that because sometimes when we talk about like pre-quilting or quilting as you go, this isn't quite the same technique because we have no backing in here. So we're just going to be doing batting and the top fabrics.
And the top fabrics.
Yes. No backing fabrics.
So the batting that I used, I actually have Floriani's embroidery batting, which I've had for a while. I bought a lot of that. So I have a lot of that. I have also used KimberBell's. I took some of that home just so that I could play. It's really nice. It's super soft. It feels really, really nice.
It is a very nice fabric.
And it comes in a roll that's not obnoxiously large. So you can actually cut right at the hoop, place it over. You don't have to pre-cut or anything like that. It's not such a obnoxious piece that you feel like you're swimming in it when you're trying to get it in the hoop.
Right.
So I've used the KimberBell's stuff as well. It's a thin batting. It's not going to add super amount of loft. But it works really, really nicely for when you're pre-quilting because it gives that little bit of poof without being, holy crap, how do I manage this later?
Yeah. So if you were not using Floriani and you were not using KimberBell, I would probably recommend a polyester batting in this and not necessarily a cotton batting. And again, the only reason I'm recommending that is because of, while a good quality cotton batting doesn't have a lot of shrinkage, it does
You
have
do have the
some
possibility of having
shrinkage.
some. Yep.
That's right. And so, and we, excluding what might happen when you wash it, while you're handling the quilt and you're actually putting it together, I know I don't necessarily keep water in my iron, but I do use like a spray bottle and, you know, to get like a seam to lay the way that I
Yep.
want it, or to get a nice crisp seam. Again,
I use
introducing,
starch.
yeah, or starch, right? Introducing any type of
liquid is going to
is gonna-
possibly pull that in
that's
if
right.
it's got some cotton in there.
Absolutely. So I would not do the I would not do cotton batting in there. Embroidery battings tend to be a mostly polyester. So that's what I would stick with. Yes, you could use Best Press 2. What's the difference between Best Press and Best Press 2? Oh, the number 2.
The number 2. And it's blue.
Yes. The original Best Press is a light starch. So in order to get it stiff, you have to keep layering, like
Right.
or keep applying more.
Keep applying more. So the Best Press 2, it's
more concentrated.
Tony's leaving.
Yes.
Because the blue pill
Right.
is what the blue starch is. It'll give a little oomph.
Yes. It makes it stiff.
It makes
quick.
it stiff. There you go.
All right. So
Waiting
now,
for Tony to say
right
something.
there you go. So now you know Best Press 2 versus Best Press
Yes,
1.
the blue. That's the
Mm-hmm.
remembering thing. There you go.
So that's the
Good
difference. So if you were lucky enough to pre-order, then you got background quilting designs with your kit. Unfortunately, those designs were only available to those of you who pre-ordered.
Yep.
I don't have those designs ready for
sale
for other people.
KimberBell did put together a package of quilting designs that were actually designed. There's a quilting chart
Yes.
of what they used in which square and all of that. So that is an option if you did not. I think they're like $90 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like $169 on sale for like $89 or $99.
It was something. It was around $100 in that range to
Yeah.
purchase the quilting patterns.
Mm-hmm.
When we did the pillow, I actually bought the patriotic set that they came out with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I used it. That's good English this morning. Used to do the background quilting there, and I did the borders of that. I used that same pattern for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I used then.
Mm-hmm.
I did not mix those in. I tried to just use what you use. It's really, when you have so many options, it's really hard to behave.
Right. So the truth is, you can mix a bunch of different quilting designs.
You can.
I did use the same, not that I copied off of KimberBell, because quilting designs have been around like this for a long time.
There's only so many, it's a flower. Yep.
Yes.
It's a fill in the blank, it's lines, it's crosshatch, it's, there's the basics, not patterned, like, she did some cherries.
I did. I drew cherries.
And I stitched cherries.
Yes.
I did stitch. I don't remember which one I used it on. I think I did it more than once. But anyway, there is another option if you did not earn those, for lack of a better word.
Just as an FYI, there is another, so this is completely off topic, but start saving your pennies, right? There is another quilt coming, which is it's a Halloween like quilt shopped theme,
but it's sewing theme.
It's sewing,
It's the Candy Corn Quilt Shop. So
yes,
you can find pictures of it out there if you want to look that up.
Mm-hmm.
Candy Corn Quilt Shop, and that will be coming late summer.
Yes. So if you hold out and wait for our pre-order, you will get background quilting designs that are designed.
Oh, you're gonna do this again?
I am. I have already started working on them. I'm trying to get ahead of the game this time, right? Instead of being behind. So yes, we'll have some fun Halloween themed and quilt themed.
Sarah was actually really glad we didn't get our designs early.
I know. I was not ready.
So our shipment of designs actually got sent somewhere else. So we were like a week later than we should have been and having those in, which was very frustrating for all of us, except Sarah, because she's like, I have another week to play.
I know.
Yeah.
I can keep tweaking. I can keep
tweaking
adding
those patterns. So
yeah, it's just one of those things. I was also learning. I mean, I hadn't really touched
Yeah.
PE11 software, so I was like teaching myself the software at the same time. And,
yeah, so like 2 weeks into it, she's like, how do I do this? And I'm like, showed her, and she's like, I wish I'd known that 2 weeks ago.
right.
It's the little things, right?
It is. It is.
Okay, so back to topic.
Yes, on topic.
The first thing that if you are doing pre-quilting, the first thing you're going to want to do, like we said, is hoop the stabilizer by itself in whatever hoop that you need for the size of the background piece. So how do you find that out? When you pull up whichever piece that you're looking at, it'll show you what pattern to pull in. And then if you go down to the end of that, it will show you what the trimming size is going to be for that square once you're all done. So if you're not pre-quilting, you would use your orange pops if you have them, and pick the size and then trim that out. And then you would sew it together and so on and so forth. This will tell you what you need to have finished, and the pieces will all fit perfectly. And there is even a seam allowance built in. So your batting is not in your seam allowance, which is great because we've had some that don't have that, and that's not fun. So
Right.
trying to get all of that batting to lie flat and not have issues is not fun. So that is not an issue here. The patterns are, and KimberBell's are as well, have that 1/4 inch seam allowance that's inside of your piece so that you don't have batting in the seams. So go to the end of whatever square it is that you're doing, and it will say, for instance, a square finished block to 6.5 by 6.5. So you would want to go to the 6.5 by 6.5 folder, or if it's KimberBell's, the one that's labeled 6.5 by 6.5, and pick one of those patterns. And you can choose whatever floats your boat. And that will tell you how to choose which pattern. If what are we doing today? 4x4, right?
Yeah, I have a 4x4.
Okay, so that we don't take so long to show you guys how everything works. So when
I think
you
that firework one is.
it's bigger.
Is it?
Yeah, these guys are.
Okay, the watermelon.
So when you go to the end, you'll see which piece. Pick that out, and you're going to put the quilting pattern on screen first. So so sorry, excuse me. The pattern will be centered in your hoop, and then you just hit add, go back to the main, and then pull in whatever quilt pattern it is that is needed, and it will center itself right on top. You won't need to shift anything. Everything loads to the center of the hoop. So unless you're trying to do like multiples or something like that, everything's going to line up perfectly. You don't have to actually mess with it. Everything's going to be right where you need it to be.
Yes.
So we're not going to actually stitch out a pattern on top. We're just going to show you, right?
Just the quilting part.
We're just going to do the quilting part.
We're
so
not
that
going
you
to
can
add
see
the applique.
how to do the batting and so on and so forth, so that you're very clear on how those instructions will all work.
Right.
If anybody is thinking, okay, great, I got that part, but I don't understand how to do the border pieces at the end, we're going to cover that in week 4. So sit tight. We will cover it, I promise.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
All right. So let's go ahead and either split screen or.
Yes, the designs are in multiple formats.
Of course. Yes.
They are not in ART, which, again, if you're a Bernina person, your machine doesn't actually read ART anyways. It is in EXP, which is what your actual machine reads. So I did not put art files on there because, again, you just have to convert it anyways. So EXP is the
what you
file
would pull
for
up.
Bernina people, and PES is the file format for us, Baby Lock. There's SCW, JF. I did a variety of them. So everybody should be covered.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. Ready?
Yes, I'm just reading the comments.
Oh, okay.
All right. So let's go ahead and either split or switch. I don't care which.
Oh, look, we're little in the corner.
Look at that. Still here. All right. So as you can see, we just have stabilizer in the hoop. You can tell by the shine on there. Maybe you know what that means. This is a fusible. We actually have a roll of fusible that's kind of jacked up. So we are trying to use it.
Yeah.
So this is, if fusible is, if you can only afford to have one roll of no-show mesh in your house, you want fusible.
Yes.
That's what you would want if you only can have one roll. So there are times when you will waste a few pennies using a fusible when you don't need it. But if you can only have one roll of no-show, please buy the fusible because you will be so much happier. All right. So first thing that we are going to do is, of course, thread the machine. Your thread isn't going to show until you actually get to the quilting section. I generally thread it with whatever I'm going to put in for the quilting, whatever the background quilting design color that I want. That's what I thread with. So I'm not changing multiple times.
Yes.
But again, it will not show in the big picture. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a squaring stitch.
I was so close.
Oh, yes.
You have to have bobbin thread in here.
Bobbin thread is necessary. It's the little things in life,
you
guys.
Can get that off without taking out the camera?
I do.
Okay. I guess the next question is, do we actually have bobbins up here? That one has very little on it. This one has very little.
Yeah, I guess we're going to go with this one.
Try that one.
We're going to see if this one will go.
I have a black bobbin.
There's like actually no bobbin in there at all.
No.
That's all right. It's just straight stitches. We'll see how far we can get. Sorry, I bounced the camera.
Do black.
We can do that. You want to do that?
Yeah, because this is pretty full. And then it doesn't matter if it's white on top.
Nope.
It's
See, guys, we do this too.
so close, right?
So close. Lost the trash can.
I did not slide it back over here. You know it's supposed to be almost 80 today.
Let's try this again. Sorry about that.
Take two.
Mm.
And we broke a thread.
Oh,
we're gonna have
so good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it got wrapped around this guy here. So,
all of our maneuverings.
Yes. Oops, sorry about the camera shake. All right, you take it from there. I can't get it in number 6.
Stop. We are having technical difficulties. All right, it's literally stuck on something on the bottom of the machine. It's like wrapped around the light.
Okay, let's try this again. Let's get rid of some of this.
Are you guys enjoying our
morning antics?
Our morning,
right?
We know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mostly.
Sewing with the camera is so much different than sewing without.
Yes.
All right, one more time. So you'll notice that I'm not backing that up, even though there's a big empty spot. And the reason is I just need to know what area to cover. So it doesn't really matter if I can see the whole thing or not. So we have a...
What's that? It's batting. It's a polyester midweight.
Where'd you find that?
In the drawer. I think it's the leftover from Tony's quilt.
Gotcha. All right. So again, all I need to do is cover up that original stitch line and hit go again. So what's going to happen is it's now going to give me the cut line. And then I'm going to trim out that batting. So now, can I pull that out without hurting anything? That'll be a challenge. So now I'm going to have to trim here. So give me just a sec. You grab that bobbin. I'm going to throw it at you.
Oh, yes. I went to solo, so it's okay if I'll just slide this out of the way, make it a little easier. Okay. All right. So Lisa's going to trim away the batting. And so this is going to trim it. So don't be alarmed. It's going to be smaller than the original outline.
Glasses are really important.
And that's because this is going to take it out of
The seam allowance.
the seam allowance. So that means that you really do want to trim as absolutely as close to that stitch line as you can get without actually cutting through it. So definitely get as close as you can.
Yeah, and when you wear reading glasses, put them on when you're trimming because
Especially white.
a white on white,
It's
and
really hard to see.
yeah, I kind of didn't do a superb job. But that's
All right.
okay.
So
Do. All right, so what we are doing now is we are seeing how much fabric we actually need to complete this. So you'll see that that is a 1/4 inch outside of that batting, and that is where our fabric is going to be. So this is actually the seam allowance that's being built into the pattern.
Yep.
And
Holly says, at least you have your pants on behind the camera.
yes, that would be really creepy since, you know, the store's going to be open in a few minutes. All right, so I'm just going to cover up that area. There is a lot of information about finding the center of your background piecing in the KimberBell pattern book. If you are doing this, it doesn't matter.
Right.
All right. So that is actually going to be your cut line.
It is.
All right. So I don't need to trim. I don't need to do anything else because I'm going to have to cut away the stabilizer and everything afterwards. So you can just literally leave it just like this and keep going.
Yes.
If there is any pull in, it's going to happen now and you won't have already cut that fabric. So you're going to have the size that you're supposed to have.
Absolutely.
All right. So at this point, my batting is in there.
Trim.
Yeah. So don't trim, just leave it as is. You've already trimmed it to whatever size they told you to for your background piece. After everything is done, the applique, the stitching, whatever it happens to be for that specific pattern. Once everything is done, then go to your cutting table and trim basically on the line that you see right now. And that should be the 4.5 by 4.5 or whatnot. If for whatever reason you end up with a little bit of smaller design, which won't happen in this case, but we'll cover that later. Basically, you would just want to cut the correct size and use the stabilizer as the extra if you had any pull in.
Yeah.
So this is just a super simple quilting pattern of straight lines. I actually use this behind the stars for the American flag type pieces because I didn't want to detract from what's going on. So I used the simpler ones behind things that had a lot going on.
Yeah.
If there was a straight line one that was 4.5 by 8.5, I would have done it on the stripes too. But there wasn't, and I didn't want to create that.
I was like, should I have added that?
But so I actually did stippling on that portion.
Yeah. And I think I did the stippling because if they didn't have a hoop big enough to complete the whole section, it's easier to butt up stippling than it is to line up lines. So I was thinking big picture for everybody who was maybe working on smaller hoops, that would be easier for them. I think there was method to my madness.
That makes sense. All right, so this would be basically you're done quilting now. Had we added in an embroidery pattern, that would be what's going to pop up now on my screen, and I literally do my placement stitch for my watermelon or whatever it is that's there, and I build that right on top at the same time.
So I'm going to pull in that design on here because I just want to talk about. I want to show them the first couple of steps of the design so they know that they can skip those.
They can skip those. Yep, absolutely.
So delete, yes.
So PES.
Thank you.
And then third one in. that watermelon will work.
All right. So I have pulled the watermelon design in, and we are set to embroider. We're going to actually stitch it so that they can see the parts that they can skip. So the first, oh, did you delete them?
Nope. They have crosshairs stitch. There's a hooping stitch for when you need it.
Okay.
This one doesn't have that. There are some that do. I don't know which one it is though.
Okay. So if the design has a placement design or a placement stitch out, then you would want to make sure that you could skip those pieces. It wouldn't matter if you stitch them or not. Sometimes the first design or the first stitch out is the placement for your batting, and then the second stitch out is the, you know, not your batting, but your background fabric. It's like the placement, and then there's a tack down.
Yeah, these have a trim line built into it.
Okay.
If you want to pull that up, we can move the camera over there
Okay.
and show what that means so that that makes sense. Most of hers, she has you just find the center of the fabric.
All right.
That guy.
This guy.
So he's a little guy. So what we're going to show you is switch back so I don't make anybody sick. All right, so we're going to show you the screen here. I can't see what I got. All right.
You might have to just back up a little.
Is that better?
I think so.
All right. So we're gonna switch back. This is now the screen I can scooch in. I couldn't quite tell in the little tiny picture. All right. So over there on the right, you see that there are 3 color stops. All right. So if we go into embroidery, the first thing that it's going to do is the squaring stitch.
Mm-hmm.
If you have done background quilting, you already have that.
Yes.
You don't need to stitch it. Could you? Sure.
Yes.
But there's no point in doing so. So this is what we were discussing. There's different types of stitches that are built in sometimes, like the top and the bottom of the hoop for cutting different pieces. The bottles have those. It's not a complete squaring stitch. It's just a line at the bottom and a line at the top, so that you can tell where to cut when you get to the cutting station. If you are doing the pre-quilting, those lines were already going to be there for you, and you won't need to stitch those particular places. So again, I am talking about that line right there. That is going to be a squaring stitch, which would be your cutting line. If you were doing this without pre-quilting, you would need to know where to cut.
Yes.
So that's going to show you in that aspect where the edges of that block would be.
Yes.
If you've done pre-quilting,
don't worry about that.
Need to worry about it. You can just skip right over it and just go to the flower step.
So hopefully
that made sense and didn't confuse you anymore.
All right.
All right.
So here we go. Now, do we want to talk about, we're done with the embroidery part. We're going to talk about actually putting it together, like the sections.
Yep. All right. So section number 1, where am I at?
Or do you want to show them how to, I mean, we still have some time. Do you want to show them how to quilt a piece that's not embroidered?
Yeah.
Okay. So, while we get this out, do we need to run and grab another piece of stabilizer?
No, I'm just going to slide it.
Okay.
So I can have a little bit of room.
All right. So, for section 1 and section 2, there are a few pieces that are
for every section, to be honest.
What's that?
All the sections.
Yes. Well, since we were just talking about section 1 and 2, but yes, in every section, you're going to come across parts of the design that would not be embroidered. So they're blank spaces. So Lisa and I, we got to talking at the beginning of this, and we were like, well, how are we going to do this to make this work? So we are recommending that you hoop your stabilizer, do a background quilting embroidery design on it, and then add your piece. Is that going to be big enough? Because isn't it like a...
We're going to slide it. We're just going to do a little one.
A little one? Okay,
Yeah,
you have some little
yes,
ones.
you're right. It wouldn't be big enough for the piece I was originally talking about. But
Okay.
I'll find another one.
All right. So if you have some blank, may I borrow your red, white, and blue, your flag stripes?
Yeah.
All right. So while Lisa's getting this set up, so this is like the stripes for the flag, and you are actually cutting these pieces exactly to the size, and then you're pre-piecing them. So this is not pieced in the hoop. This is done on your regular sewing machine.
That's like quilting, sewing.
Yes. Yeah. Regular piecing. And so you have this section right here that when attached to the flag wouldn't have any quilting behind it. So at the beginning we were like, well, how are we going to make this? Like, do you go back and quilt that afterwards? Lisa had this brilliant idea that we could pre-quilt.
We could pre-quilt that piece together
in here,
which I actually did.
Yes.
So that's for another piece later on. And I could pretend that I did this on purpose, but I didn't. I forgot to add batting to that one. It was midnight. So this is section number 2.
So there's like an example.
There is that piece in there. So you can see the stippling stitches that are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my necklace caught on the arm. Sorry. It is literally the same thickness and the depth of the other pieces.
Yes.
Because I quilted that whole section with batting underneath and then stitched it. So it looks just like all the other pieces.
Right. And since this one is just a little bit different because you aren't going to have a ton of extra fabric, we wanted to show you how you would go about this. So,
we've been talking about how fabric can pull in with stitching and things like that. So we don't want you guys to get to this portion and then go, well, that didn't work.
Right.
So what you're going to need to do in this case. So let's do a 2.5 by 4.5.
Okay.
And I've already lost my piece. There it is. Halfway through.
Oops. I'm on the KimberBell designs, not the quilting designs.
All right. So again, these are all organized by size. So when you go through that page at the front, which we said follow like a Bible, right? When it says you need a 2.5 by 4.5 piece, that is including the seam allowance. Do
you have a preference?
Nope.
So lines are simple.
Sure.
That'll work. Lines again?
Yep.
Or no?
We can, but I definitely won't quilt that with white. So let me rethread real quick.
Or would you rather have something different on it because it is your block?
I don't care.
You don't care? Okay. Well,
I don't even know where it goes.
Stripes are simple.
It'll go anywhere. I probably should have wound the ends of these threads in before I threw them in this bag, huh?
So I'm gonna edit and rotate sideways. And
for crying out loud.
Sorry, that was me.
No, that's all good. I just have this big old wad of stuff I don't want.
Just making sure we're down far enough. Okay.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
All right. Because the foot's down or it doesn't. I can't get the thread out when the projector is on.
This is true. Yes.
It locks everything.
I think the design moved down far enough. I think I hit something.
Oh, you're going to. I got what you're doing. So I am putting in red thread because we're going to have a cute little red cherries piece of fabric that we're going to show you guys how to do.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just threading with that red thread.
Terry, we still have 1 or 2 kits that are full, that are ready to be picked up.
We've got more coming, but
yes, the patterns
KimberBell ran out.
Yes, they did. All right, so let's get this back over here.
Over there.
Up and down. Does that look
Over
good?
there. I think that'll work.
All right, you have a little piece of batting. You're going to need
I
that too.
still got, yep.
Okay. All right, so we have deja vu. All right.
We're right back where we started.
That's right. So, Karen, we weren't doing anything important except for trying to make sure that you didn't get seasick while we were moving the camera. So, we have fabric in here again, and I have another design up, which is basically stripes again.
2.5 by 4.5. So it's a different size. And I am choosing that by the actual size of my quilting piece.
Yes. That's the finished size, not the finished
cut
size, the cut size
of whatever add-in pieces that I need to do the actual quilting. So the sewing portion that you're doing as you're piecing all of them together, you're going to have pieces that don't have embroidery. That's just the cute decorative fabrics. So we're going to need to pre-quilt those so that they all match.
Yes.
So that's what we're showing you how to do. So I've got this piece of fabric that I've already cut. So it needs to fit perfectly in here.
Yes.
So just like before, it's going to show us where we need to put the batting. On a lot of these, I actually pre-cut those. So if my thing was 2.5 by 4.5, I needed a 2 by 4 piece of batting. I cut that, put a little bit of spray adhesive and slapped it on the back of the fabric so it stayed where I wanted it, and then placed it in the hoop.
Yes.
Had I not been doing that, I wouldn't have made that mistake last night. So this is just like what we did before, and it's going to show us how much batting we need, and then we're going to place that in there. Once we have that, it's going to show us again for that background piece, but this time it's already cut, which the first time I did this, I was like, somebody's going to have questions.
Yes.
So that's why we're hoping to answer those questions for you before you get there and have them.
So once again, she this is not a pre-trimmed piece of batting. She is trimming in her hoop.
But you can pre-trim if you prefer to.
That's right. And then, like Lisa said, you could just use a little bit of like 505. It's temporary adhesive.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. That was the one piece I couldn't get. I know, right? Go faster, go faster. All right. So my batting is trimmed. I'm going to put that back in the hoop. All right. In the hoop. In the machine.
And the machine.
It's early. Not yet. So it's going to show me where to place this.
Yes.
So just like before, when we were doing this guy up here, it showed where we needed to place the fabric if we wanted to overlay that before. But this time, I'm not going to have any overlay. It's literally going to be the exact same size as the square that's stitching. So you are going to want to babysit this a little bit. All right. So when I place this, I'm going to line up my piece with that line that's stitched. All right. Sometimes, as we know, quilting is going to draw in that fabric and it may not end up on that line, but that is your cut line. Whether the fabric goes to it or not, that is where you're going to cut when you trim this to put it back into the quilt.
That's your little fudge room.
That's the fudge. All right. So when we stitch, I am literally babysitting this and making sure that it stays as much as possible. Oh, it's going to do that squaring. Where are we going? I skipped this step at home because it's not doing anything. All right. So now it's going to, that would have tacked that down, except it's the same size, so it didn't overlap it enough to tack that down. So when I was doing these at home, I literally skipped that step. So at this point, again, I'm going to babysit and make sure that I have that fabric staying as much as possible inside of that line, right where I want it to be.
This one's a nice one because it kind of works from the bottom all the way up. So it makes it a little easier to keep it in.
So it is slightly inside, which is actually good because that'll make sense why we're talking about this for you guys. All right, so you guys can very easily see that there's a red line above that, right? Even on that angle there, I'm going to pull it back toward you so you can see it a little cleaner. All right, when I go to cut, I am going to cut on this line for this guy up here, and it's going to be exactly the size that I need because I have fabric there. So when I cut that 4.5 by 4.5, I will end up with 4.5 by 4.5 with fabric. Here, when I go to trim that away, I'm going to cut on this line, but there's a little bit that's not filled. Okay, that's going to be my seam allowance. It doesn't matter, but I still need to have a guide for when I'm piecing them together. So you want to make sure that you're cutting on the stitch line, not on the fabric edge.
Yes.
Because that quilting brought that fabric in a little bit, so it's no longer a 2.5 by 4.5 piece of fabric. So I want to use that red cut line as my actual cut line. Don't cut on the fabric edge. Use that piece so that you end up with an exact size piece when you go to put it into the quilt itself.
Exactly. So hopefully that makes sense.
All right. So I'm going to just set this here. You guys can see that I've pre-quilted a couple of these, right? And some of them were already embroidered. So I'll slide that under there so it goes a little farther. So here is a block that was embroidered. This is actually one of the, it might even be the last block. So in the email I sent out, I said, you know, I'm not going in the order of what the book, like don't start at the beginning and stitch blocks. This one is like the last block I stitched because I literally went page by page through the book. So the sections that we're talking about are the quilt sections, just so that you're not confused on why are they starting with the last pattern. We're going by sections that are piecing that. So I pre-quilted this. You can see the quilt marks there. This was probably the most time consuming piece of the whole thing. The stuff at the beginning was easy and it got harder as you went, which was kind of funny. So this one, and then there's a really cute flower vase in like a mason jar kind of thing. Those were the two hardest ones and they were at the very back of that. So it's actually all pretty straightforward piecing. Some things that I want to mention when you are going through. If you did both the pillow and the quilt and you got the thread set because, hey, this is great. I'm going to, I guess I could scooch over so you can actually see me and I'm not a ghost that's talking. The thread sets that are in there, when we chose those specific colors, we only had the pillow. We didn't have the quilt itself. I added 2 more colors when I was stitching. So I added a green and I added a blue. So this blue that's here is much more royal blue than either of the 2 that are in the kit itself. And I added kind of a grassy green. So I have 3 shades of green. Just putting that out there so that if you look in the, I don't have that thread color. That's why, because I just wanted it to be brighter. I didn't want this to be light blue because you wouldn't have been able to see it. And the navy blue would have been super dark. So I just wanted something that was a little bit brighter. So apologies, I guess, we didn't have this when we made that thread set to be able to match to the different pieces in, in the fabrics and things like that. We went with what we had.
And the KimberBell recommendation.
And the KimberBell recommendations. So I did add 2 more thread pieces in there. All right. So that was one thing that I wanted to mention. There is very good instructions. Everything that you really need to know, if you read the book, everything you need to know is there. And, you know, this is all pretty straightforward applique, nice big satin stitches. When you get to the glitter or the vinyls, there is no satin stitch. I know we've talked about that before. Whatever color you tack that down with is going to be showing. And it does say that in the book, but sometimes we kind of glaze over those things because we're so used to, you know, applique. Well, there's going to be another step that I pick whatever else color it's going to be the one. So make sure that you are doing that. I feel like somewhere it told me to change my bobbin to black. I don't think it was for these, but I don't remember exactly which section it. Oh, I know, and it wasn't black. There is let me find it. So these letters here, you are going to want to match your bobbin thread to that so that you are not seeing
Oh, that makes sense.
white when you're doing like a running stitch kind of stitch. And you're doing lettering, it likes to pull up bobbin thread.
Yeah.
So put in a red bobbin here. It did say match bobbin to thread color. I don't believe I did that here. This is the only thread choice that I kind of went, I don't know that I like that. I would do, if I was doing that again, I would do that with darker blue, just so that you could see it a little bit more. But I already did it, so I went with it. So that is one square that it's in another week, but we were talking about directions and stuff. So the colors are beautiful. Everything works really, really well. In addition, you would need that white and the black. You are definitely going to be using them. This is section 2. Oops, got caught. There we go. So flag number 1, which is a little bit bigger. You can see I did choose the stippling. I actually, this one's not in this size isn't in there. So I just used a stipple pattern from the machine. And then this one's going to have little cherries. So I did the cherry stitch on that because there's little pinwheels, not pinwheels, yo-yos.
Yes.
What are those called?
Yo-yos.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah, a yo-yo, like I said. It's going to go right there. Good morning, I'm awake. So those are going to be stitched there and to make them look like nice plump cherries.
Right.
So I thought it would be cute to have cherry stitches in the background there.
Cool.
The other thing, and I only did this once, but I was really mad at myself when I did it. When you are stitching vinyl, if you have a thread underneath that didn't bury itself, make sure you trim that before you put the vinyl over it because you can't get to it after the fact. Ask me how I know.
Yeah, you did point that out to me once or twice.
Yeah, I was just like, I can't believe I missed that. And I just flat out didn't see it. I had trimmed and I just missed it for what, it was like in line with the rest of the stitches. But once it started moving, I was like, son of a gun. Now I have this tiny little thread that I can't get off. And it's, of course, annoying me. So just look at that before you cover any of those stitches with vinyl. Make sure that you don't have any tails that you wanted to trim previously, because I personally found that really annoying.
And I know sometimes people ask us what color do we do the background quilting in. You didn't do it in the same color. You have a lot of white, but there's also some blue in here.
Absolutely.
So you can just pick whatever floats your boat, right?
Yes. There are some darker fabrics that I didn't want the thread to be what you saw. These fabrics are beautiful. I absolutely love this new flower fabric. It is really, really pretty. And you can see there's a blue one back here. So I used a navy thread to quilt on that so that it was still quilted, but you saw the pattern. I did use white a lot, but only where it applied. You're not seeing, all of the pieces. So, I did blend.
Yeah.
That one I used light blue.
There's light blue in this one over here.
On the cherry piece, I used a light blue, which isn't as dark as you would think. That was the blue that was in the kit. So, I mean, it's not overwhelming, but I wanted to make sure they could see the cherries too, because otherwise, what was the point of picking it?
Right.
I didn't want it to blend too much. So there's really, the first couple things were very, very simple. There weren't really anything crazy. The crazier things are towards the back. However, the way that they're pieced together, some of those back of the book pieces are in section number 1. So let's talk a little bit about the leather. This has a stitch line that tells you where to line the edge of that up with, and then you are only trimming. So it's actually an open truck bed. You're going to put, I think, probably a button or something in there, but I don't remember at this point. I'm sorry. And just note, when you trim the leather, you see the trim. So try to keep a nice smooth, don't hack at it, don't do a small section and then move the scissors away and then come back with the scissors again, because you will see that jagged edge. Try to keep it because you see it's backed with white fuzz. So you see that white wherever you cut. So if you have a jagged edge, you're going to see it. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be annoyed and you're going to be sitting there. And the more you mess with it, the worse it gets. So try to be nice and clean when you are cutting on that edge of the red leather, because
that's a great tip.
It definitely will show. There are a few where I had to turn a corner, so you had to stop. That's driving me crazy. But I know if I go back and mess with it, it's actually going to look worse.
Right.
But that was probably the hardest thing for me, because that white edge just kills me.
Yeah.
But it actually looks really nice in the truck. You wouldn't be able to see the definition of the different pieces without it, but you definitely see the cut line. So make sure that it's as smooth as you possibly can make it. My double curve scissors, I highly recommend. So these are my favorite scissors when I'm doing things like that. Highly recommend, if you don't already have them, you pick up a pair, because with stuff like this, it really makes a difference. So the leather and the glitter vinyl and the vinyl itself are all going to show you that final stitch. So whatever you pick for that tack down is going to be the one.
Yeah,
so make
you'll be
sure
trimming
that
around that.
you're trimming, and you're going to see exactly what you stitched it down with.
Yes.
So yeah, pretty much followed most of the color suggestions. I did use a gray. I probably could have used a darker gray here on the flagpole. I feel like it said to use white, and I stitched it in white and went, I can't even see that. So then I went back and stitched it over a second time with a gray, so that it was at least a little bit visible. So, use your own opinion. You don't have to follow the directions.
No.
So, sometimes you look and you
It's
go,
okay to break the rules.
Absolutely. We have talked about these little stitches here. This is a beautiful satin stitch, and then she does a top stitch over top to give it that definition and kind of fancy it up a little bit. I know from classes that I have taught in events and things that are KimberBell, there's a lot of you out there that do not like that top stitch. Skip it. If you don't like it, just skip it. It's okay. You can make that personal choice of, I don't like that, I'm not doing that.
Right.
Or if you want to do it to have add a little dimension, you can do it with the same
Do it with
color.
the same color instead of an alternate color, so that it blends, but it still gives the definition.
Yeah. You kind of see the edges a little bit, so you get like the textural effect without the visual effect.
All right. Yeah, Terry, I see that you're probably going to see you today. We have some other stuff for you, if I remember right. So, we will try to have that ready for you. Was there anything else? I think we covered a whole lot. And if anybody has any questions, if they want to shoot them out before we disappear, or of course you're welcome to call the store and we'd be happy to help. So,
and if not, we'll see you in a few hours
again. We'll see you in you can see what our rooms look like at home.
Yes.
Mine is a mess. Before we show that video, just warning, I am not an organized soul. I have organization tools that help me, but big picture, I suck at that.
Mine is pretty organized.
Yes, yours looks like a store. I know.
It does look like a store, and but you know what? I wasn't always like that. So making spaces for everything is the only way that I can stay organized. Otherwise, I'm just like throwing behind my shoulder like we did the other day, right? Because it's difficult. So a couple more people have asked about the quilting files. So the quilting files that Lisa is using, these were designs that I created as a special gift to people who pre-ordered the red, white, and bloom quilt from us. That is the only way that you can get those particular files. KimberBell does have a bunch of really cute background quilting designs that are available. You do have to purchase them. If you have a fancy machine, like a Dream or a Destiny or a Luminaire or a Solaris, you can use some fabrics that we have, or not fabrics,
Quilting.
but quilting designs that we have in here to do your own pre-sized background pieces, which would not be difficult at all.
It's not. However, I would like to mention that when you do it that way, there's no batting removal of the seam allowance.
Right.
So that's one huge advantage to using those or the KimberBell ones, is that it gives you that
Yes.
piece that fills in the right spot instead of that 1/4 inch too much of batting around the side. So the quilt is called Red, White, and Bloom, and it is a package unto it of itself. The Main Street Celebration bench pillow is a separate thing. So somebody asked if they were the same or two separate things. The thread set itself, it's the same colors for the two.
They complement
They
each other.
complement each other, but they are two separate pieces. Both of them are available still. We have both in stock here at the shop. So the threads that we used were all exquisite, which is a dime thread. Even my black and white are also that I pulled in. I do think I cheated. This blue here, it happened to be the blue I wanted, and it's a Floriani. So I have a lot more Floriani than I do exquisite at home. So I had a much bigger selection when I was choosing that add-on blue. But everything else I used was an exquisite thread. So I think that's what that question was to be. The Bloom quilt is $149.95 for the bundle, which includes all of the fabric, the embellishment kit, and the pattern itself. So pretty much everything you could possibly need, sans stabilizer thread and a backing.
Yes, and right now we don't have enough extra pieces of anything to have it separate. So it's
Correct.
basically just a full kit.
We
or-
don't have the pattern alone or
Yes.
anything to that at the moment. We do plan to.
Yes.
I ordered extras from KimberBell, but even KimberBell is out. So there is more coming. But if you want the pattern alone, you'll have to wait just a little bit longer.
Yes. So, and yes, this video will remain up on YouTube and on our Facebook page. So it's a little easier to find it
Them on
sometimes on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it will be there. So you can rewind, fast forward, do all that kinds of stuff anytime. I think that's about it.
There is a question about if you get it now, the quilting files are no longer being included. That was for the people who pre-ordered. So
Yes.
they ordered probably like 4 months ago for the most part, and have patiently waited with us this whole time.
Yes.
So it was kind of a thank you for pre-ordering.
Yes.
At this point, it's not an order so much as it's a purchase. And so that's, unfortunately, they are not being included at this point. Those were a gift for the pre-orders only.
Sure. Yes.
So.
And there is a new one coming out. The Candy Cane. What is the name of that?
Candy Corn Quilt Shop.
Thank you. Is coming up probably late summer.
And that it's super cute. So we already ordered the fabric line.
We have.
So there are Halloween fabrics that will be coming, and the theme behind it is sewing theme. So there's a sewing machine, and there's dress forms and different things.
Yeah, little bolts of
that
fabric.
are bolts of
so
fabric.
cute.
It is extremely adorable.
Right. And there are photos out there, so you can see them.
Google it again. It's the Candy Corn Quilt Shop. Is the new one that's coming out end of summer. You can see the pictures. You can pre-order that through us. And
Is our link live?
I will check.
We'll make sure that the pre-order link is
Is live on our website, which you can locate at LaBouSewingCenter.com. There is a Shop with LaBou link. Click on that, and you should be able to find it.
And I will be doing background quilting designs
quilting for the pre-orders on that
as well. They won't be sold afterwards. It's just a special thank you. And we'll be doing something like this as well for that. So, all right.
As a recap, there's one more question. The stabilizer that we used is a no-show mesh in the hoop by itself, a fusible backing to the backgrounds that you're going to be quilting on. And I used like the embroidery batting from Floriani or KimberBell batting. for the actual batting inside of that.
Mhm.
Those were the, but a polyester
Batting
if you don't have one of those two, a thin
Mhm.
polyester.
and a fusible woven on the back of
Yep.
the fabric. KimberBell
That
is a
you're
great
putting-
brand, or
Yep.
Something, and then the mesh. All right.
All right,
so,
signing off. I know we've been a little bit, we were hoping to keep it in an hour. We're a little over.
We
I
have a
know.
lot to cover
It's
today.
a shock, isn't it?
Yes.
We went over. So yes, thank you for joining. We will be back here again next Tuesday morning to cover the next sections 3 and 4. And again, those are the sections at the back of the book.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about those pieces. And then 5, 6, and 7 the week after that. And then binding and doing the border pieces, how to do all of that with those quilt files as well
Yes.
on that 4th week. But we will see you this afternoon if you tune back in at 3:30, and we'll talk about keeping yourself organized because we're so good at it.
In your
um,
sewing room. And we'll be sharing.
And we're going to share video from our
our
homerooms
sewing rooms,
so that you
yes.
can see what we use
Yes.
and what works for us. So we will see you then, or maybe next week.
All right.
So you guys have a good one. Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.